by temperature, although you perceive it to be so, there is in fact a chemical component to the idea of temperature that is not taken into consideration, that is often overlooked, that you witness when you combine particular chemicals together. You witness heat being created, energy being created and formed into heat. This is in fact a chemical reaction as you define it. However, um, uh,
That's a really interesting point. It definitely shows how much more complex and interconnected everything is than we often realize. It's always fascinating to see these deeper layers behind what we perceive. Thanks for sharing that perspective.
hmm, annoying. I'm gonna have to train him. Okay. All right, Dimitri, what do you want to say about the chemical reaction? Let me know when you're here, Dimitri, when you're in. We will take over from here. We believe you are ready. The chemical reaction that is taking place when you experience heat, you believe that when you experience heat, you believe that it is the rubbing together of two atoms that creates a level of friction, creates energetic exposure, energetic expulsion that is formed into the idea of heat. And yet, heat can occur within substratification on synonymification without there being any ignitory component. This is quantum level heat expulsion, is what we are discussing. Quantum level heat expulsion. And we are interested in having you understand that there is a way which heat is produced, in which energy is produced, that is not caused by the friction of two atoms rubbing together. That is what you feel is the way in which this process occurs. We would have you understand that it is subatomic level ignition, in fact, that is occurring, and by proxy, neuromification, subatomic neuromification, bicentennial, by cyclical ionification. And what this means is that as you use heat for energy, when you're discussing the idea of launching rockets, launching something very far into the distance, and you are using the energetic forces that are created by the idea of heat, you believe that what is happening is that the particles, the atoms rub together, creating friction, creating an output, a purging force that propels, polaric force that propels the object deep into space or wherever the target may be. Yet we would have you understand that there is another mechanism that can be used in order to propel an object that is less to do with force. The idea of force is waning within your reality, will not maintain itself for much longer, since force can only go so far. As you discuss the idea of force, control force, it is a similar idea. The forces can only be manipulated and controlled within this paradigm that you work within, can only be manipulated uh, to a particular degree, cannot extend itself to the extent that is possible for you as a population to extend yourself. And it is far more efficient to use other means of transportation, of propelling an object. We would have you consider more likely the idea of throwing an object, whereby, yes, there is a force behind it, but what is truly happening here is that one is actually shifting from one reality to the next, shifting through reality. The use of water is the hydrogen component within the the fabric or the structure of the reality through which you are existing is important in this dynamic because it it promotes more fluid shifting from one reality to another. It is not necessary to include a, a you may find as you begin to work with the hydrogen atoms that you find a method of propelling that is much more efficient and less taxing, uses much less resources, more resourceful. Entropic bilocatory synthesis, entropic bilocatory. I'm seeing some little aliens again. I wonder what they are. They have red eyes this time. The experts, they say the experts in transportation. What I'm seeing is like the particles can kind of it's almost like they get vacuumed through the wormholes. They're in one extremely quickly. They're in one place and they're in another place. This time it was almost like the world shifted on its axes and um gravity pulled it down. So it was like it moved and gravity pulled it down. So it was like there was a force, almost like a magnet, magnetizing, electromagnetic force. Yes. A magnetizing force that pulls you through the wormholes of reality, the particles that you're made of through the wormholes of reality. So you end up in bilocating to a different place. But this force, and I see on my left side, I see some kind of being. I'm not sure who this is. They feel a little bit ominous. The government. So it's like there's a force that moves you, like a magnetic force that moves you from one location to another, and it kind of takes the particles and they can move very freely through the wormholes and then emerge in another location, kind of reform themselves there. It's like a fabric of the universe is billions of pinholes and it just kind of seeps through, and at the other side it comes out pretty much the same because the pinholes were so tiny and so little difference between them. Dimitri, I'm wondering, why did you say that we're 94% water when our average is 70, 60 to 70? You do not understand the nature of water in its true, vast, and complex manner. The water that you define as water within your body, there is much more that you may define as water once you understand the true nature of water. Much of what you experience as matter is water. We would define as water, or at least liquid. What's the purpose of this information? What do you want me to do with it? You are supporting the evolution of humankind. That is your only purpose, not to ask questions of why and wherefore. Your only purpose is to support the evolution of mankind with your wisdom, with your understanding, with your knowledge, with your capacity to embody greater, higher forms of consciousness and bring knowledge through in this way.